with us today are colleagues from Assist, who, if you've been on any of our fundraising trainings before, you know Joshua. You'll meet Srini a bit later today. For those of you who this is your first time, Pollinate Impact is a member-led network of impact incubators and accelerators. And Martha, I think I saw you there. Hi, Martha. And we support incubators and accelerators across the Global South to really improve the efficacy of their ability to support entrepreneurs. And we really believe that impact entrepreneurs are going to be the drivers of developmental change. And we are doing that through supporting the incubators and accelerators that support those enterprises. So if you've been to our sessions before, you know what's coming next. We're just going to do a quick check-in to level set. Today's session is on CSR engagement strategy. So we know there's a lot of CSR money out there, and Srini is going to talk us through some strategies to position your organization to see how you can actually leverage some of that funding and support that is out there. So Shami is going to pull up her screen, and I'm just going to put in the chat here. Oh, Shami already did. Perfect. So if you can just join the Menti poll, you can just click on the link below in the chat, or you can go to menti.com and put the code in that Shami has put in. And Shami, are you sharing it? There we go. So we're just going to do a couple of quick questions to see where everybody's at in the room. This will really help, I think, Srini tailor his response, his training to understand, to help support you all. So we want to understand, what is the most daunting challenge for you when it comes to accessing CSR? And it looks like we have folks here maybe from India, from Southeast Asia, from Sub-Saharan Africa. So feel free to put your response in that's relevant for you and your market. So this is an open-ended question, so feel free to put a word, a phrase, anything that you feel is the most difficult challenge for you when it comes to getting CSR funding. And if you don't have a challenge yet, because maybe you've not tried it, you can put that in too. But we want to understand what some of the challenges are for you all. And I will put the link in again in the chat for those of you who have just joined in. So you can click on the link in the chat or go to menti.com and put the code in. Or everyone is getting lots of CSR funding and you have no challenges if no one's having any problems that they want to share. And if you're having a trouble with the Menti code or accessing the Menti meter, just let us know in the chat so we can troubleshoot. Because it's not like, seems like we haven't gotten any responses yet. No? Everybody has no problems? Or maybe folks haven't tried yet. Or Shami, is that you refreshing? Maybe we'll. And if anyone wants to maybe
sorry, were you Ariel, you were not able to see the responses?
I wasn't seeing any responses. Did you have them?
Okay, let me share the screen again, because I was seeing the responses. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Sorry, no, we couldn't see.
Okay, let me pull that up again.
So if for those of you who are just joining, and I can see we still have some more folks trickling in, we're just doing our quick check-in questions. Oh, there we go. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so if you're just joining, please join the Menti poll. I've just put the link again in the chat. So fantastic. Okay, so definitely some people who haven't tried policies, people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, how to approach them, how to get introductions to the right people, convincing them and finding the alignment. Reluctance and hesitance. Interesting. I'm wondering if the reluctance is on the side of the person asking or the person who has the CSR funds. You can share with us in the chat. But this is fantastic. Yeah, knowing who has the budget, I think that's really connected with introduction to relevant people, right? It matters, I think, who you're talking to within the organization and who's actually holding the purse string. So, but this is fantastic. Okay, lovely. Thank you all. Thank you all for that. We'll go on to the next question, and thanks, Shami. I think we can see now. We want to know where in the world you are. So put your country, your city, and again, I'm just putting the Menti link back in the chat as we still have people coming into the room. So let us know where in the world are you coming from? And Joshua and Srini, you're welcome to Vietnam. Awesome. I'll add, I'm coming from Mumbai. That's from India, Kenya. Fantastic. More India, some more Kenyans. Awesome, awesome. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, good. So good spread from Palestine, lovely. Oh, Mohammed, I remember you. Mohammed, hi, good to see you. I think he's the guy from Palestine. Fantastic. So Shami, I think we can go on to the next question, but really great to see the spread. And we want to know who is in the room. So tell us which organization, which type of organization are you? Are you representing an incubator, a hub? Maybe you're coming from the donor space. Maybe you're a consultant. Maybe none of those suit you. Oh, and I see some more folks putting in the chat. Momo, good to see you from Zambia. Paul, good to see you again from Cameroon. Maureen from Uganda. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so quite a few incubators and accelerators, which is exactly what we had anticipated. I'm curious, who is other? You can put in the chat how you would define yourself. I think that would be helpful to know. But great, so pretty good audience here of incubators. So that will also, we told Srini the same, so at least we're in line there. Awesome. So I think, Shami, we can, so this is our last check-in question. So again, if you've just joined, click on the Menti link in the chat. For those of you who have tried to build partnerships with CSR, funders, what are some of the strategies you have tried, or one strategy that you've tried? I think that would be really helpful for us to understand what some of those strategies are that you've tried, so then Srini can help us understand maybe some of the ones that are more effective than others, but it's good to see where the baseline is. And if you haven't tried, you can also just put that in, that's all right. If you're here to learn new strategies. Field visits, okay, great. So it sounds like maybe person-to-person interaction, which is really fantastic. I think we know that there's not much substitute for in-person meetings, so that's great. Anything else? Any other strategies that you all have used? Here we go. Okay, someone here to learn. Okay, great. So it sounds like most people are here to learn new strategies, which is fantastic. So it seems like, Srini, we have a pretty open group who is really here to learn. So without any further ado, and maybe while Srini introduces himself, Shami, we can leave this up in case we have a few more questions coming in. So Srini has decades of experience in fundraising and development strategies across the global South. I will not do him justice if I tried to introduce him myself. So I will hand it over to Srini to introduce himself and to help us learn some of these strategies that he's seen effective when it comes to engaging CSR funding. So Srini, over to you, and thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We're really happy to have you.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening to all of you, and Shami, good morning. So I'm very, very honored to be here. Let me start by saying that I remember about a year ago, or maybe a little bit over a year ago, we did one of the first sessions, learning sessions for the incubators and the accelerators. And I see from there on, quite a bit of you have added and joined. It is highly encouraging. You guys are the, catalyst to make many good things happen. Yeah. And it is a tireless job, and you are at it. And we will explore today, in the limited time we have, looking at how corporates, how specifically this agenda of CSR is going to help us raise funds for either the accelerator or incubator that you guys are coming from, or help you help your mentees probably access these funds. Okay, we'll talk about both those scenarios later on. Okay, just to give a little bit of background, I know I'm seeing a few familiar faces here from the first training as well, but to give you a perspective, I'm based in the Philippines. That's one country which did not appear in the list, so please add that to the list. I'm based in the Philippines. I spent over 25 years in the Southeast Asia part of the world, but having said that, since 2001, I've been working in Africa. So my first trip was way back in 2001, working on projects in South Africa. I see Celeste using the chat box quite a bit from Johannesburg. So yeah, I've done, when I say I speak for myself and my organization, working a lot in SADC, okay, which is not just South Africa, but Namibia and Zambia, in Zimbabwe, from way back in those days, working, funny enough, with corporations, but on always social impact projects. Now, us as an organization, we always looked at diversifying the way we receive funds. So from a grant-seeking organization, which used to always get funding from the European Union, from the German government, from the Danish government, from USAID, several years ago, maybe more than a decade ago, we sort of went into a hybrid model where we looked at grant funding, but in partnership with the private sector. We have about 90 projects with us over the last 10 years funded. And each project is about $500,000 funded because we partner with the private sector. Then in the last, I would say 5 to 8 years, we started working exclusively with the private sector. So rather than this being an academic lecture, what I'm trying to say is that we are practitioners. What we will share with you are actually good practices, but this is a large or a huge topic to cover in 1 hour. Okay, we will evaluate between us, Ariel and Shami, if we need to do even a deep dive in the future on the same topic, but probably focus on one single component of it. You know, Pollinate Impact has been set up and has been working on trying to enable you guys, and not only should you be beneficiaries, but also invite several other accelerators who could potentially benefit from that, and in turn, through that, mentees. I'm going to check in on the chat box once in a while. So if you do have pressing questions, feel free to jump in. But what I'll try to do is every so often, maybe let's say once in 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to just pause, ask you guys for some feedback, questions, and things like that. And you could jump in at that time as well. I was just explaining a little while ago that as much as the slides presentation has got less than 20 slides, possibly, I think that is still way too much for this 1 hour. Okay, so I'm going to try and do the incredible act of trying to manage time here. Before I start, can I get a thumbs up or a quick hi on? Actually, the thumbs up would work on the reactions below. If you can hear me loud and clear, and if I'm too fast or too slow, you could put in the chat box rather. Who's going to be the first one to give me a thumbs up? Fortunately, I don't think there's a thumbs down. So, but otherwise, I would know. Anybody? Am I coming in loud and clear?
You
all
you
of
are,
you?
Shani. I think I saw about 9 or so. So you've
Oh,
got some
okay,
good.
okay. I'm not able to see that. Okay, okay. All right. I was wondering why I'm not getting that. Okay. So fantastic. So by the way, I've worked in Uganda, Ghana, Kenya. So quite a few. The only thing I'm missing out here is Mozambique, though I have a lot of partners in Zambia and Cameroon. Not done work in Palestine as an organization. And of course, in Vietnam, we have a fairly large presence for the last 15 years, and we have a full-fledged office in Ho Chi Minh and colleagues in Da Nang and Hanoi as well. Actually, practicing whatever you're going to be learning today. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to just show you how this discussion is going to go. Okay. I'm going to keep the first 2 sections, that number 1 and number 2, very short. Okay. We're going to talk about number 3 and number 4 in a little bit of detailed manner. I'm going to show you why, when it comes to CSR, you need to be sort of very systematic in the way you approach organizations. I noticed Celeste mentioning, finding organizations with alignment to their mission and vision. Somebody asking about the need to be very convincing. Somebody mentioning about accessing the right people. Those are all extremely right points, and I think there was this mention of donor fatigue also, but fortunately, in the world of CSR and the corporations, increasingly their actions or their activities in the world of social good is increasing now. We may have several thoughts about why they are doing it. Okay, we may have several comments about it, but for some of the most structured organization, if you take Allianz, the insurance company, the German insurance company, in Kenya, specifically in Kenya, they are doing outstanding CSR work in Kenya. Of course, if you take the telco there, they're very, very famous, of course, for a lot of their CSR work. Particularly for countries like Ghana, Kenya, I would say South Africa for sure, where you have a lot more multinationals. Your ability to access CSR is going to be very, very high. Okay, the same goes with Vietnam, even though it is still a very new phenomenon in the Vietnam. In Vietnam, probably CSR is there for the last 5 years to 10 years. Yeah, as an organized activity, large corporations, large conglomerates doing social good because they believe in it, or it's because of their philosophy, the founder's philosophy. Those things have been going on. I'm not touched about India a lot. India, there is a mandatory rule already. Okay, last year alone, the Indian corporations have spent a minimum of $4 billion. Okay, and it's not new, but it's a crowded space. There are about 3.5 million NGOs, or 33 to 35 lakh NGOs, who are all trying to access that money. So one of the very important things is your ability to be ready to access this money before you even go about doing it, or at least do that in parallel. We will be touching about that. So 1 and 2, we will talk about it. I've got some interesting statistics. It is not necessarily relevant to any of the countries you are based in, but it's a global trend. You can think of that trend and take a look at, these are the same topics. Maybe the order might go up and down, which are still a priority. Education, health, environment, livelihood, agriculture and food security. These are all topics, the top 5 topics, which typically is interesting for corporations in general. Yeah, but we will get into those details later on. The last section, not the Q&A, but the one before that, is something that I put together as 1 or 2 slides exclusively for you guys, because you are not necessarily a non-profit, okay? You're not necessarily, some of you may be, you're not necessarily an organization which has multiple thematic areas that you focus on. For example, in Assist, we have 4 core thematic areas we focus on. There are 4 sub-thematic areas we focus on, which means that increases the diversity of donors we can approach. Okay, we work on disaster management, we work on education and skills development. On the other extreme, we work on environment and green economy in the middle. So we have a health and sanitation on top of it. So, we have the diversity to go and approach with different ideas to different people. Whereas in your case, you may be, or your mentees may have a single cause, okay? Either it could be health technology, it could be about financial inclusion, it could be about agri-tech. I noticed the word agri-tech in one of the mentee polls that was there. So you might have a single cause. There is another strategic approach you could adopt, which has worked very, very well for somebody like us. When I speak for myself, I also run a magazine, something that I forgot to probably flash here. I will get our friends in Pollinate to make sure that you get a copy of the magazine every quarter. That magazine features best practices on accessing funding, how to manage your people, how to do better project management, etc., etc. It's a 50 to 60 page magazine which comes out every quarter. We used to print it before, now it's all digital, but very well laid out. Probably at the end, during Q&A, if we have some time, I will show you our first quarter magazine. The second quarter magazine will come out next week. So there is not so much of learning available in this subject matter area. So we are hoping, we are one amongst 5 magazines in the world which touches on this topic, okay? So again, I'm not only talking about our practice, I'm trying to accumulate best practices that we know. We've been running the magazine for over 6 years now. So we get in touch with a lot of corporations, we get in touch with other NGOs, we get in touch with social enterprises and get their best practices. In the process, we also learn quite a bit, yeah? So today we are here, we are only 20 years old with projects in over 25 countries, particularly CSR linked projects. And one of the good things you will learn from this is once you build a trusted relationship with the corporate or a corporate foundation, there is a good chance that you could move around. For example, in East Africa, you could be based in Uganda, but you build a relationship. They could say, why don't you do some work for us in Tanzania? Why don't you do some work for us in Kenya? So it doesn't limit you. And the same in West Africa, in Ghana. Okay, so I used to love the beaches in Ghana. I used to come there to the Kofi Annan Center, do a lot of work, but that work was always with the German government. So, whether it's in West Africa, in Nigeria, Ghana, there are opportunities all across. So, mindful of time, let me go on. Okay, now let me go on to the first slide. So we are going to focus a lot on the CSR engagement, but obviously for incubators or your mentees, okay, I'm just putting out 3 top opportunities where you can get money from, right? One is grants, okay? On an average, just for your information, in fact, Tuesday, it's a perfect day today for us. We reviewed about 32 grants which are applicable to us, but we will probably pursue only 1 or 2. Right? These are grants which are shortlisted by a research team in our office, which are applicable to us. We do this every week. I know some of these grants or opportunities are also shared to all of you, okay, which are highly relevant to you. So the grants are one thing, which is like, so in order not to put all your eggs in one basket, we pursue grants. We also pursue CSR, right? Which is what this topic is all about. We also look at getting venture funding, probably for your mentees. And but the way global finances and global development funding is happening is tomorrow, they could be funding you as an incubator to develop strong deal pipeline through your mentees. So, you could get even venture funding into your organization. Okay, whether you want to accept it or you want to have it like a hybrid grant plus venture funding, it's all up to you. There are obviously other opportunities, but I will not talk about them right now because that's another Pandora's box, so to speak. You can go to high net worth individuals in your country, okay, who are, who have a lot of money, who made a lot of money, who are in the process of giving back. Again, if they trust you, and that trust comes because you have a good process, you have good people, you have good project management capability. So you have capacity and capability, and they could leave an endowment to you. They could give you a grant, blank check signed off. These are coming from family foundations or what we call high net worth individuals. India does a lot of that. Vietnam does a lot of that. Okay, using a philosophy called giving while living. Rich people want to give out money while they're still alive so that they can see the positive impact this money can create. The advantage of funding incubators and accelerators like you is that they're not only funding you, but through you, they're actually enabling a lot more organizations. So your story, both for CSR and getting other kinds of funding, is excellent. Only thing is you need to build a narrative, okay? And we will talk about how to do that in the coming slides. Okay, so we're going to focus on the CSR engagement exclusively. Go to the next slide. Yeah, what is CSR? Clearly, everybody has, sort of an overall understanding. Nowadays, they don't even use the term CSR as much. Many tend to call it just as sustainability. Many tend to call it corporate responsibility, and not, they sort of eliminate the social. But, I would not, those are all semantics for me. For me, I would be happy to look at any of those things about trying to why corporations would do it. Now, which corporations typically tend to do it is these are the larger corporations. I'm not saying the smaller ones don't do it, but the larger corporations, particularly those who are listed. I know in the smaller countries, in the more developing countries, the number of companies which are listed are small. But countries where there are stock exchange and there is an ability to list, these companies are being directed by their Securities and Exchange Commission to start doing this kind of reporting. So they have to actually start giving out a little bit of money to look good to their shareholders, stakeholders, and for the best of public perception. Of course, there are horror stories about many of them who are trying to what we call greenwash, okay, do some song and dance and things like that. But let's not get demotivated by all of these, right? We are looking for a few good players, okay? You don't need to judge the whole world here. You're looking for a few good players who in turn will respect you, and you also have mutual respect for them. And then you work on something together, whether it's a packaging company like Tetra Pak. I'm sure Tetra Pak is everywhere, including Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Uganda for sure, or they have operations in those places, or Coca-Cola is there in all of these countries. They have one of the largest giving programs. Okay, so we will talk about that a little bit more. So the idea of CSR is to not just do business impact, which is to make money, but also to balance out your social responsibilities and environmental responsibilities. Slowly, other things are being added. Human rights is being added in this aspect. So particularly, if you talk about South Africa, we used to work with Anglo Plat many years ago. We used to work with Woolworths. And you would notice that they're also interested to make sure that they're buying produce from farms which do not use child labor, for example. So the human rights aspect also is adding. So corporations, particularly in the world of social media, gets instantly judged. Share prices can go up and down. or products can be stopped. People might stop buying products if they have bad publicity. So they would like to have good publicity, but not just publicity, but would also like to do good. People are easily able to call out if they see some bullshit, you know what I mean, right? So I think that way there's a lot of pressure in amongst corporates, for the corporates to do good. Now, interestingly, for many of you, Vietnam, for example, is a fast-growing economy. I do not expect donor funding or grants to continue in the next few years. Okay, maybe Vietnam is so strategic to Germans, Americans, Australians because of the manufacturing base, because of great agriculture. They still give development aid, but sooner than later, grant funding will stop, and your main source of social impact funding will come from either the government or corporations, both local and international corporations. The same will happen in countries like Ghana, countries like Kenya. We know, you and I know, that we still have a long way to go to become developed, okay, to make it very inclusive. But from the perspective of donors, when you cross about $2,000, $3,000 purchasing power per person, then you're slowly out of the donor list. Okay, so for many of you who are in Africa, it's quite good. Okay, also, governmental donors are slowly distracted by various other commitments, whether it is wars, refugee crisis, and things like that. So they're not able to continuously fund. So I would say, if you take a look at the next 5 years to 10 years, one of the best bets is to target corporations, right? Because they are not going to get any poorer, and they're just going to make money, and somewhere they also have to offload some money to reliable organizations. The idea is to move from a transactional one-time relationship to something which is much more trusted. Now we'll talk about that. Let's go to the next slide, please. I'm already running a bit late, as I can see. So we are looking at some of the key areas where money typically goes in CSR. This is where, as an accelerator and an incubator, you're like, oops, hey, I don't seem to be in any of these things. I am in the others category, where I am an enabler of good. Okay, because I am creating entrepreneurs, I am doing empowerment. But you know, if you dig deeper, you will have a better narrative and a better story to tell. Okay, you are making entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. Maybe you are focused on women entrepreneurs. Maybe you are focused on entrepreneurs who are exclusively working on health issues or agricultural issues. So you can spin your narrative. Okay, I don't want you to misunderstand the word spin, but you could make a very passionate clear on how you could be talking about the good work you're doing. But if you see globally, okay, globally, these are some of the topics which gets highly funded. There are several more, but they have very small share. You know, there is religion, there is this and that, but this is your high level. So, you know, health, sanitation, you know, obviously poverty alleviation is so big. Okay, when we talk rural development, agriculture is also included in it. Education and skills is a huge area. Okay, if one of your mentees, one of your incubators is working on EdTech or something to give scholarships for, etc., great opportunity for them to tap funding. They can tap funding, CSR funding, in partnership with you as the incubator, so that you also get a share and you also do some level of administration. So don't think, as an incubator, I don't have a story. My incubatees have a better story. Yes, they do have a better story, but as the catalyst, you could also be part of the story. You could tell to the incubatee, okay, you focus on what you do very well. I will make sure our story gets out there and we get funding, and I will help you administrate that funding, deliver the commitments, etc., etc. So there's a great opportunity for you guys. Now, irrespective of all these topic areas, there are cross-cutting areas. So whenever you use digital to do good, okay, it could be for wash and things like that. Okay, what can we do to promote hygiene but use digital tools and technology? How could we always bring in gender? Is there a way to be much more inclusive by having people with disabilities, especially taken care of? So that adds another layer to how you could be doing. This is just some data. I've got much more reference materials which I can share with you. Okay, if you go on the next one, ideally, CSR funding is primarily restricted to corporates, whereas corporate foundations and family foundations are not necessarily part of CSR because they themselves are a foundation. But as the world works, many corporates and corporate foundations are almost like two sides of the same coin. So their CSR is administered through the foundation. Now, this doesn't work in India, but in other countries, internationally, you have a Visa Foundation, which takes care of all their CSR activity on behalf of Visa, or MasterCard Foundation, or American Express Foundation. Okay, like us, we received a very huge funding from JP Morgan, but it's through their foundation. But of course, the corporate also is part of it. So CSR funding primarily is money which comes from the corporation. Okay, 90% of the times, but sometimes some organizations are structured in such a way that the corporate foundation is the one which takes care of the disbursement of the funds. So I would say same coin, but two sides. Yeah. So that's the distinction I want you to make. The other group is what we call family foundations. Extremely wealthy founders of corporations who have made their personal money and start tending to give money. Okay. They tend to be a bit more stringent, a bit more programmatic. So all of you are familiar, majority of you in Africa, very familiar with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. There is the Bezos Foundation. There's Sam Walton Foundation. There's a lot more foundations similar to that, which also gives out money. Very interesting target group. Okay, very interesting target group, and we should not leave it aside. Okay, there's a lot of good families who consistently give a lot of money, and this is where the trusted relationship works. Whereas in the case of corporates, it can start off as transactional and go to trusted, meaning there could be corporations which would like to give you a small amount of money because they have to spend it within the end of the year or end of the financial year. So as long as you come knocking on that door at the right time with a reasonably good idea, you get your money. Whereas with family foundations, you tend to build a longer term relationship. We'll talk about that a little later. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, now this is some interesting data. The data on the right is from the US. I know, except Shami and maybe some of you are from the US or US based or looking at US, but don't forget about 10% of this money. Actually, I just give you an idea because we've been using this data for over 10 years. Okay. 10% of this money is for international giving. Okay. You will notice you can forget the first part, which is 69%, which is giving by individuals. This is charities. I mean, personal charity of individuals who give to UNICEF, maybe $5 a month, a few rand a month. those kinds of things. But what you need to look at is item number 2, giving by foundations and giving by corporations. If you look at that together, it's almost close to $100 billion. Now, I know this is the US. Okay, you could make this into millions of pesos or millions of rand or millions of things and have a very similar outlook in your country as well, because there's nobody else who does a better reporting. In fact, we have a study that we are conducting later in this year to find out about giving trends in Southeast Asia. That's because there's no data like this available in this part of the world. The last data which was produced about 5 to 8 years ago was by MasterCard Foundation, but it was skewed because it was donations given using the credit card. Okay, it was not very comprehensive, but this study gives you a very good idea on how chunks of money are going. So almost 25% of the funding, 23 to 25% of the funding, is coming from foundations and corporations. So all the more you need to have your go-to-market strategy for getting money from these corporations. Now, whether you call it CSR, you don't want to call it CSR, doesn't really matter, friends. But remember, they are a huge source of funding. And because they are very business-like and they are in a position where they can afford to take risks, they have systems on one hand, but on the other hand, because they have systems, it's easy to process your idea through the system, because the system will take care of it. It's not depending on an individual, a good hair day, bad hair day, or in my case, no hair day, to be figuring out whether you need to be praying after you put in your proposal, or do you go through a systematic process. So this is a great thing. Let's go to the next slide. I think we have some more data on this. Okay, I think I have one more slide and we will take a pause there and go back and forth with a little bit of questions. Okay, so these are some organizations all of you are familiar with. All of them are available in your countries, more or less, either directly or indirectly through distributors and things like that. We have been funded by the Pfizer Foundation. We've been funded by BMW in the past. We have not worked with American Express, interestingly enough, even though we have worked with Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, a lot of them. A lot of money is given. Yeah, a lot of money is given by these kinds of corporations. And it's not very, very difficult. Not very, very difficult. I did recognize this question about alignment, which came about. Okay, obviously you can see BMW is interested in road safety. Okay, but they are also interested in education. There is an incubator, or you talk about, we want to generate a generation of future entrepreneurs who are well educated, who are going to be the change makers of the future, and they are educated with the right values right at the beginning, the best of values, right? Because of value, whether you're rich or poor doesn't change. Honesty is a good policy, as we call it. Whether you're rich or poor, honesty is always a constant. So value building, and you could be promising that, as an enabler, as a catalyst, as an incubator, this is what we want to build for future generation, and that will be a good story for them. For Pfizer, if you have incubators who are in the health space, they are one of the most easiest to work with, and they have such huge spending money. So getting a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, but they are used to giving huge numbers. But in general, even getting some smaller amounts from your local offices is highly possible, but up to $20,000 possibility. For example, if you say that we would like to put out a call for mobilizing health startups, okay, or startups which focus on cancer, which is a huge area and Pfizer's interest after all, they'll be saying, hey, this is something interesting, we would fund you, okay, and you can use part of your fund, part of that funds also for spearheading other initiatives for yourself. Let's go to the next slide, and I think that section comes to an end. These are other foundations. Of course, Kellogg's, many of you are probably familiar with them. Look at them. They are spending about close to $500 million. Okay, now, caveat, probably 90% of that money is being spent within the US. Okay, but still 10% is there. That's still about close to $46 million. Okay, and they do fund a lot. Folks in Africa get the first preference. Folks in conflict areas probably get the second preference. Of course, I know there's someone from Palestine. Of course, we are horrified by what happens there. But I'm not sure if this is the time for it. But in the future, you could be looking at these guys. Of course, Vietnam is probably half the corn and half the stuff that Kellogg's is buying is coming from Vietnam, actually. So they have vested interest to invest because they probably have manufacturing facilities there. The consumers also with 100 million people country, because I don't see any other country there in this list which has more than 100 million except India, Vietnam. Kenya is not even close. South Africa, no. So, you know, Vietnam with 100 million people, whether it's Cisco, Kellogg, American Express, these are guys who are waiting to pay money because Vietnam is upper middle income, slowly going into the upper middle income, which means even the consumers are ready to spend money, which means when you do a CSR, they look at it as great publicity and will fund you a lot. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's stop here. Okay, guys, I think I've gone on and on. I apologize. I want to do a 15-minute break. Before I wanted to take a pause after 15 minutes, but I'm taking it right now. I'm happy to answer one or two questions which you may put in the chat box right now, or I don't know if you can unmute and even speak up. I love to hear voices. By the way, are you all still there? Because I'm in the spotlight, I'm not showing. Any questions for Srini? Yes, somebody is.
We're all still here, Srini.
Yeah, they're all still there. Not fallen asleep, huh? Come on, guys. I know in Africa it's lunchtime, huh? So any questions? Has it been clear so far? We have 32 participants minus 3 or 4 of us, about 25 of you times 3 questions. You must have 75 questions by now, each one of you, totally. 3 questions at least. Any questions? Is it clear so far? Any top CSR? Oh yeah, of course, Vipul. Cargill, okay. Vipul, are you the one based out of Mumbai?
No, sir, I am from New Delhi.
You're from New Delhi, okay. If you take a train and I don't know if you connected by train, if you go to Gurgaon, you would have Cargill, Cargill, okay. A huge donor when it comes to agriculture in India. I'm speaking about in India. Of course, they are an American giant with $40 billion. Today, if folks are buying fried chicken in Kenya or the folks in Kenya buying, or in South Africa, the sugar which goes into the Pepsi Cola, all is being supplied by Cargill. So Cargill itself is not an agri company, but it's an agri commodities company. They buy from the farmers, process it, and then give it to companies like Pepsi, Burger King, McDonald's, Locker, you know, the wafers company, and things like that. So that's just one company I'm talking about. There are very similar companies. Archer Daniel Midlands is another company which invests a lot. Of course, in the space of agriculture, what can I call? I got a significant grant from a company based out of Nagpur. It's called SDF. Let me see what's the name. Deutz. It's called Deutz. It's an Italian-German company which makes tractors. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is you don't only need to look at companies like Syngenta who are or Monsanto or companies like that. You could also look at equipment companies like Tafe in India, or this tractor company I was telling you, combines, Caterpillar, Komatsu, all of them also invest a lot of money. So on CSR specifically, 42% of companies globally see CSR as a good business strategy. Yeah, good question, Isaac. In a country like India, there is a law. Yeah, there is a law where a company has to spend 2% of their profits on CSR. Companies of a certain size and certain thing. That alone led to a few $1 billion last year, where companies were forced to spend. There have been companies who've been spending money for quite some time. I know that Kenya is trying to enact a similar law, yeah, and South Africa has been talking about it for the longest time. I used to be in Pretoria working with DTIE, and they keep on saying this is something they want to bring, but there's always been a complexity with the Ministry of Finance and things like that, because this is something that all listed companies need to do. But increasingly, whether there is an official law, people are starting to expect companies to engage in CSR, particularly if they want to raise money and get more customers. The younger the customers are expecting the companies to be ethical, seen as ethical, etc., etc. We are empowering vulnerable communities with entrepreneurship skills. This is a great area. Multiple CSR donors, but we will talk a little later about in what level are you? Do you have at least 3 years of registration? Do you have any cash flow? Do you have a reasonably good, shall we say, track record or something like that? We will talk about it, but it's a great question and it is a great opportunity. Entrepreneurship has to be the only solution for the future, or has to be one of the major solutions, because no governments can guarantee jobs, even in a big growing country like Vietnam or India. No government can guarantee employment. So people will have to look at the entrepreneurial way. And Africans, particularly in Africa, they are the most entrepreneurial. The reason is there's no other opportunity. So they better have to start looking for them. Maybe you're going to cover it later. Do you identify the right person to speak to? Super question. Okay. I will recommend to pollinate if it is a possibility. There is a tool called Lucia. I'll send the spelling to you, Shami and Ariel. It's what we call a lead generating tool. Joshua, can you just message Karthik and get the name, exact name of the website? Lucia, Luscha or Lusha. It's a lead generation tool. It's very cheap, but I think as a overarching organization, maybe you can get it and sort of help people find these contacts. We are using LinkedIn. Ariel, that's the question. I think you, as well as the person earlier to you, Celeste, which is Celeste, is been asking about the right person. We are using what did I say? LinkedIn. Okay, when we get the companies, we Google CSR manager, sustainability manager, corporate communications manager. There are 4 or 5 people who are corporate affairs manager, public affairs manager, government regulations manager. So if those are the 4 or 5 functional areas you Google with those company names, you are going to pull out the name. And then you put the name of that person, and I'll show you how to go about it in a systematic manner on section 5. Okay, this cannot be a knee-jerk, once in a blue moon operation. It has to be a very systematic activity. This company with the robotics and coding sellers, this is something which corporations would love, particularly if you're teaching young women children. from the same disadvantaged rural communities. SAP has a huge grant for SAP being the German technology company. Yeah. Intel has been funding us for over 10 years, Celeste. And Intel is big in South Africa. Okay. You know, Google has funded us, single check, one-page document for a huge amount of money. Also, several years ago, all of these guys would love you. But, you know, South Africa is sort of already on the cutting edge in many ways, but there's so much more to be done. You could do it. But if you add the gender lens, you've got the technology lens very well covered. If you add the gender lens, so we have a project called DigiConnect in Vietnam, where we are training people with disabilities on coding, so that they could be sitting and focusing and doing this back office work in Vietnam. So, you know, it adds another layer of empathy for the ones who give, because, you know, so there's great opportunities. Intel particularly does a lot on robotics, actually, specifically. Okay. So we'll stop here. Okay, we will stop here because that's a lot of good questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm happy that you guys are actually paying attention. So exciting. This is where the rubber meets the road soon enough, you know, where the systematic approach, I'm stressing it again and again, is more important than just saying, you know, we wake up, we send out a couple of proposals, we wait. You'll be shocked at the numbers we do. I'm not talking about the revenue, okay? But I'm talking about the number of contact points we do on a weekly basis in order to get to where we need to get to. The classic sales funnel, you reach out to 100, you know, you probably end up engaging with about, or getting responses, and probably from about 50, you probably engage with 25. You're probably doing something good with about 10. And if you close 5, you're doing very well. But we do in the 10 to 15%. So it's not bad. You got to go with those numbers game, and you have enough corporations in your individual countries. Don't think of your country any lesser, in my opinion, actually. Okay, so but we'll get to that. This is what I was afraid of, you know, that we need more time. But, you know, our good friends Ariel and Shami will make sure this happens again for you guys. Okay, so we'll dive deep at that time. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Joshua, yeah. So let's be clear, guys. And this is going to the question. I'm not sure if it was Eva who asked it or Isaac who asked it. You know, you all worried about who are we meeting the right people, but are we the right organization is the question they're going to also look at. So I will ask my colleagues to put together some possible checklists, which we will share with Shami and Ariel, and they will probably give it to you. Do you have all your paperwork ready so that you're not running around? Vipul, you are in India. I'm not sure if you're from an NGO or a incubator. You need the right documentation, ATG, 12A, you know, CSR1, FCRA, all those things. If you have it, it puts you as a first among equals, you know. So the credibility is not just about great intention, right? The proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating, and your credibility has to manifest not only with the genuineness of your words and, you know, the genuineness of your intent, but it needs to translate into paper. So are you registered? Have you had, do you have audited financial statement? You don't need to have a lot of money. Everybody has to start somewhere, right? But at least do you have the registration papers? Are you registered with the government if it's a requirement, like in the Philippines, it's requirement. In the NG, okay, yes, Edipo, I'm looking at your question. I'm with a company that offers, working with communities require a lot of patience and strategy, yeah. Yep. Okay, I'll come back to you, Edipo. I think you answered, somebody else in this, I suppose, to Isaac. Excellent. Okay, thank you, brother. Yeah. Client relationship is critical. Like I said, starts off as transactional and ends up becoming trusted. Okay, there are some steps in between. In the 1950s, there was a writer called David Meister, and he talked about how a service organization, so an incubator, an accelerator, a social enterprise, even an NGO, we are all service organizations, most of us, right? How do you establish credibility when you don't have a product and all you have is good intent and your words, and that's what people need to trust you with? Seems like a dicey situation. We'll have to look at how do we build that credibility. I will ask Joshua, my colleague, to share our newsletter as well. Okay, of course, we used to have a 1-pager, 2-pager. Now it's a 16-pager, which comes out on the dot every quarter, on the first week of the succeeding quarter. So next week it will be out. This is the way we communicate to establish our credibility. People, of course, approach us seeing it also. We print it. We did not print it before when we didn't have too much money. Now we print it, circulate it, put it out. Of course, we make a QR code and circulate it to a lot of people. We are looking at a 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, what we call direct client inquiry due to our social media and all those outreach. We still count on go-to-market, that I suppose we will cover that a little bit later. Okay. So the motivation behind giving money for corporates, of course, is also because of good business practices more than opportunities. In many cases, they also give out money to test interesting ideas. Okay, they are trying to give money so that you could help people in the rural communities where their factory is. Okay, so Celeste, if you are working with underprivileged communities in a particular province in South Africa, and in that province you have whether a flour manufacturing, the flour export companies, I remember I visited many, or you are working in an agriculture belt, the agri companies are interested to fund the families of the farmers, and these are the kids who are interested in robotics because the parents who've been working and the grandparents who've been always farmers would like to see their kids get into technology and see the city lights and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't want you to judge me. One of our biggest donors is Philip Morris. Okay, Philip Morris, for many of you who don't know, makes Marlboro cigarettes. Well, actually, they are probably one of the largest cigarette manufacturers in the world. But we work with them with their tobacco farming communities. So for me, I still treat it as an agriculture company because they are huge tobacco farmers. And for the farmers, they don't want me to teach about tobacco farming. These buggers have been doing it for ages, you know what I mean? So it is the farmer children they want us to focus on, because number one, they don't want the families to bring the children to work on Saturdays or Sundays, because it's a strict no-no in the Philip Morris Code of Ethics. They want the children to be occupied for evening programs, after school, self-defense, coding, talent shows, art competitions, and believe me, these cigarette buggers have a lot of money. Okay, so they're good people actually. Yeah, good people as well. Okay. Choice is yours whether you want to smoke or not. Okay, so that is up to us. But as I said, as I sit together, as I sit here, I mean, Assist used to be a very, very, very militant advocacy-based NGO 20 years ago, but we are now seeing that coexistence, compromises, and that doesn't mean compromising on the values, but also understanding others' perspective Age gives you that, experience gives you that perspective, and we look for win-win relationships, because we look at certain industries which are indeed by norms polluting, but we also look at 10,000 direct employment, 100,000 people benefited because the local economy revolves around that. Perfect case would be the extraction industry in South Africa, or the oil industry in Ghana. Okay, well, does it have corruption? Does it have all those things? We don't want to get into it. Let's be clear, we cannot save everybody. Let's be very interested on our stakeholders and beneficiaries directly and make a small change for them. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Joshua, give me a buzz on Slack if I'm running late. I'm actually running late, I can see already. So the challenges, guys, that you may have is whether you have expertise. Now, I saw, is it Tom or Timothy talking about a Pan-African NGO is running, Celeste is right there. Also talk about learning. Yeah. By the way, TechWalk Skills, we are the only NGO which has, we probably have the most number of technical skills programs funded by Schneider, funded by Schindler, which is an elevator company, by JP Morgan, by Deloitte, a lot of companies. By the way, there's a very famous program called the E-Learning Africa. Timothy, I'm not sure where you're from. It used to be in Zambia all the time. I used to come there. Man, this is what, 10 years ago? And now it's there everywhere. That happens, the E-Learning Africa thing, which was sort of co-funded by the Germans way back when. And I used to be one of the architects. These opportunities are fantastic. So I can see actually collaboration also happening between yourselves, so that the expertise can come because of collaboration. Let's be very clear, we are not experts in everything. So we either hire technical experts or we work with collaborative partners who would then share that expertise. Particularly, we are right now, Joshua, who's my colleague who's in this call also, is working on a project which is looking at mental health challenges of patients who have TB or tuberculosis, right? Or not just the patients, but also the patient family, right? So if you're a carer of a patient who has TB, all of you are stressed out because it's a contagious disease. It is a disease which has a stigma. I'm sure there are similar challenges with HIV/AIDS. So there is this element of mental health we are working on, and it's been funded by USAID. Only for us to realize all the pharma companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca also want to chip in. Okay, once you get one funding, there are a lot of people who are willing to chip in. That's the great part. So expertise collaboration, you guys can easily work on, but with some effort. But very important is good implementation, because all your credibility is very, very critical. Okay, somebody mentioned about alignment. Clearly, that is the expectations of the corporation. Now, because you might be a single cause organization, you don't need to be an ambulance chaser. Don't be that, because it will be very difficult for you to deal with multiple thematic focuses, particularly if you're small. Okay. Today, we are a reasonable slice, and we have verticals, and we have subject matter as well as implementers and associates across the verticals. So we can take up 4-6 thematic areas. Like I said, disaster, we have a team. We have a team which does only skills development. We have a team which does only health. That's the way it should be, right? But initially, if it's a single cause, it's fine. Okay, you can slowly grow. We started off as an environmental NGO 20 years ago. We didn't expect ourselves to go into skills development, but it was a natural progression. Agriculture was a natural progression. It's very critical. By the way, NGOs or social enterprises or any social organization, be it profit or non-profit, are seen as extremely good allies and partners for corporations, because it looks good on their reports that we work with a social organization, social impact organization, or a social good organization, irrespective of how you are registered. You're registered as an NGO or as a social enterprise, extra points, maybe 5 points more. But as long as you're a social impact organization. So for those of you who registered as a for-profit, don't mind, call it for-profit with purpose. Yeah, it's the narrative that you need to set, which dictates how the conversation goes forward. Okay, they look at you because you have connects with the community, you have networks, you have resources, and the corporations are far better off spending money through you rather than directly, because their cost for delivery is very, very high. So this is some of the expectations. There's a whole laundry list. I'm not gonna go into each of it. Of course, one of the expectations from you is you are financially transparent. You have a good system of managing money. Okay, so that adds a lot of credibility. Let's go on to the next slide, please, because the next big section is coming up. Okay, so sorry. Okay, guys, I wanted to spend a lot more time on this. Okay, but it is so self-explanatory. Okay, I'm the one who takes up too much time talking incessantly. Okay, but if you were to look at the next 5 slides on your own, it is self-explanatory, but I'm going to help you through it. I want to put a word of caveat here. This is an internal process of ours, which we are sharing with you. Okay, it's for free for you to use, yeah, and modify. We have much more detailed way of how to do this. Okay, so we use a process called 5C for our CSR. Okay, 5C. Okay, then we have a process called 5D for implementation of these projects. We are not talking about it today, right? Maybe in the future we will talk about how good project management is done. We will talk about that, but today we're talking about the 5 C's. Okay, and particularly with the emphasis on go to market. That means how do you meet organizations? How do you prepare for this meeting organizations, etc., etc. So phase 1 is called contact. Phase 2 is called connect, which is usually through emails, LinkedIn, and things like that. But good email with a short narrative, asking for 20 minutes of their time, asking for 30 minutes of their time at their convenience, and promising them you will call them the next day to check their availability. You gotta, so in the old days when I used to send fax, I always believed a fax has a life of 24 hours. Okay, many of you are probably wondering what the hell am I talking about, because you're probably so young. There used to be something called a fax. Okay, Celeste, you remember that? Yeah. So way before the email days, right? So we would send out fax messages, we would send out mailers, and we always said the life of the fax is 24 hours. So we need to call the next day, call the assistant of the president or assistant of the manager, or at least say, connect us to the office of your sustainability manager. Somebody puts you through there and say, we sent this, can you check if you received it? Or we'll tell the secretary or the executive assistant, we sent it. If I get your email, we'll send a copy to you so that it's easier to follow up. A lot of work, my friends, the contact and connect. This is part of what we call the lead generation phase. Then once they accept, the communicate part, okay, they said, let's meet, okay. We do what is known as a pre-meeting research. I will ask Joshua to share later, if possible, if we have time, of how we do it. We actually, my colleagues would do a short write-up or from their website about what are their focus areas, but very importantly, they will find the LinkedIn profile of the person we are going to meet. Okay, so what happens is, when I'm free, when myself or my colleagues are free, the ones who's actually going to meet are free, they would take a look at it. They'll find out, oh, really? You're from the University of Western Cape. Okay, I also went to school there. Okay, I went to Kenyatta University, so I also went to school here. I went to RMIT Ho Chi Minh campus, or I went to Ho Chi Minh School for Economics. You sort of try to prepare yourself on some of those personal connects. You also find out, okay, you work in this company right now, you're the big boss, but you used to work for another company where my uncle used to work. I'm just telling you these possibilities. The 6th degree of connection really works. And invariably, if you share that, hey, I'm going to meet this person, to the next person you're sitting to in your office or to your family member, there's a chance you will know people there. Okay, they know this person, or they know somebody from the same company. So the pre-meeting is very important. Then you put together the deck, which should be a standard deck, so that you don't prepare every time. Then there is a meeting proper. There's post-meeting actions, including thank you letters, etc., etc. If it moves forward, you would do a proposal and things like that, and the project implementation happens. That phase 0.8, which is project implementation, actually would go and get into another department. But still part of business development is to properly update your database. Somebody might say, you know what, I love the work you're doing with rural children. I love the fact that you're teaching robotics. You're just coming at the wrong time. Can you get in touch with me after August? Sure. We are not a robot. We can't remember this. So somewhere you need to put this up. There's a lot of databases, a lot of what we call sales pipeline tools, which are available for free. Salesforce is available for free, where the sales pipeline management, you can enable it through technology. Okay. And sometimes these follow-up emails as well that you need to do can be done through this automation. Cross-cutting all of this is using technology, doing regular reviews weekly. And that's when I get to see the statistics of who's doing what, when, how much calls have been made, etc., etc. It is sort of, for want of a better word, very process-centric and very systematic. Yes, I dare to use the word very, very regimental. Okay, I did not dare to use the word. Let's go to the next slide, because I'm already thinking we're coming to the Q&A time. But you can see here, friends. Okay, you can see here what I mean by this. Now, some of you need further information or more help about this. Just get in touch with our friends from Pollinate. We will see how we can schedule something else and really specifically do this. This is a very detailed process. Each phase, each activity, each box here has detailed step-by-step instructions for our associates in our company, because this is what we do. And we have a single person or two people doing this work every day, day in, day out. They are not the ones presenting to the company. They are not the ones meeting the company, but they are the ones who do the lead generation and connecting with the client. Go to the next slide, Joshua, please. Okay, so when you engage a target lead, either you email, call others. The others is that social media. In the Philippines, you have Viber, WhatsApp. You get all kinds of connects. Maybe you have some, I forget the chat they use in Vietnam, Cuckoo or something like that. And they would, become social media friends, Insta friends or whatever. And they would keep sending out requests very gently, very genuinely. Okay. Is there a response? Okay. No. Back to lead generation. Did they agree to a meeting? Yes. Sometimes they might say, just send me the information. Don't bother me. Back to lead generation. Yeah. And then if they agree to a meeting, and if you're very consistent, believe me, particularly corporations, they always agree to meetings. Okay. They never say no. If you're drafting a good email, okay. In fact, we can draft a good email. One of you can draft a very good email for your organization. Please share it with others also in your ecosystem in Pollinate. So maybe one of you is extremely talented in crafting very appealing letters. Let the others share. Maybe they'll do some wordsmithing and add some words which is more appropriate to them. So if you share, I think you can do more. Okay. Then of course is the communicate phase. Okay. I wanted to spend more time here, but I'm not. So let's go to the next one. So communicate is pre-meeting actions. As I said, there's a bunch of steps that you need to do. Researching whom you're meeting. You're meeting two people, research on those two people also. Research on the organization so that you don't show up and you don't say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, give me money, give me money. No, that doesn't work. You must have empathy, understanding of what they do. And you put the ball on their court. Okay, you find points for alignment, even in the most inordinate cases of not finding alignment, you will find still points of alignment. You know, whether because you're talking youth, you're talking women, you're talking technology, you're talking helping vulnerable people, there will be somewhere you will connect. Because or maybe that person's wife works for a big company, or that person's spouse, would be a better word, or aunt or uncle is working in another NGO, and he or she says, you know what, I love what you guys are doing. Maybe we don't have a connect right now, but let me introduce you to my friend who's the general manager in the next company. No, don't lose that opportunity for striking up these kinds of relationships. Yeah. So the meeting proper, and there's the post-meeting actions. The post-meeting actions, like I said, includes sending follow-up emails, minutes of the meeting, other relevant documentation. If you promise that you will send a web link of your organization or some of the work you've done, don't forget it. Again, our rule is within 8 hours to 24 hours, you need to send the post-meeting action. Okay. So by having what we call this service level agreement, these metrics, our young people can do this. By the way, even if you're a small organization, get a bunch of interns, put this process together, use the interns to do a contact connect piece. Let them research top 100 corporations you could work with in Uganda or in Cameroon, or identify top 100 corporations which are actually having products in Cameroon, which probably then hence they are interested. Yeah, so that's the way to look at it. Okay, Zambia, same thing goes. South Africa, same thing goes. Okay, some countries obviously in a much better position compared to other countries, but we all have to work with what we are dealt with. Yeah, let's go to the next phase, Joshua. I apologize, Shami, we are running out of time, but collaborate is where we create a proposal. Okay, it all depends on whatever was the discussion in the previous stage and what they asked for. Okay, why don't you give me a proposal for doing a coding program over the next 3 months for 100 girl children, who are in their K11, K12, or grade 11, grade 12, or do a technical training program, on skills development or entrepreneurship development. One of you mentioned it. Everybody loves it. Okay, financial literacy. Everybody loves it. Every bank, forget about all the other international corporations. Banks and insurance companies are there across the board. Yeah, and all these banks and financial companies would love to see financial literacy programs to be delivered if you are in that space, and or entrepreneurship development program. Yeah, the MOU is a standard practice, or it's actually a contract. Yeah, it's a contract, because ultimately, if you're going to work with them, there has to be something that you have to. We use the word MOU. The client may not use the word. You use the word what the client asks you to put. It could be a partnership agreement. It could be a contract. It could be a memorandum of agreement. Whatever it is, just do it. Yeah. So that's what's going to get you the touching, so to speak. So yes, that's what you would do. And once that is done, boom, you go for the implementation, which is taken care of. In our case, in the old days, I would be the one to make the proposal. I would do the implementation. When I say I would lead it and somebody else would do it. But today, as we have grown, there's a different team which takes care of it. The last one, last but not the least, of course, is the consolidate phase where, we put up the reports internally. I'm talking, this could just be an Excel sheet. So let the names and the things not confuse you or like intimidate you. It just could be an Excel sheet you're updating or a Google sheet you're updating. We use a platform called HubSpot so that we can easily track everything. Because on an average, we are reaching out to at least 25 to 30 customers per week, potential customers. And imagine that just 1 month, that's 100 customers. Almost all of them need to be followed up. All that thing cannot be remembered and done properly on an Excel sheet or a thing unless there are regular prompts, and that's where technology can really help you. So there are several tools. We use something called HubSpot. There's something called salespipeline.com. There's Salesforce. There's a lot of these things, what we call CRM. But this is not just a CRM, which is a combination of databases and Salesforce automation. What we are looking for is Salesforce automation, automating the sales process. Okay. All right. Let's go to I think this is only one slide. Okay, guys, this is a big topic, but I'm just telling you, okay, you could say, you know what, all this sounds very, very good, but I have a very low bandwidth, very low capacity. I can't, talk to multiple donors and each one asking me a different solution. Then I would go with one strategy which is unique, a strategy which we internally call as master concept framework. So this is a program we have developed for soon to retire police personnel. That is for people who are in the armed forces or police force who are going to soon retire. And I'm talking about the privates, the lower rung people, the people in the lower rung, the privates, the constables and things like that. Many of them, of course, globally, no matter where they are, a policeman or a woman has a bad reputation. I'm sorry, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But 90% of them are good people. 90% of them are underpaid. Majority of them are overspending, taking out loans, so that by the time they retire, they have 25 years of good experience, very reliable people, very, 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 very disciplined people. But many of them end up becoming security guards, or they take the bulk of the retirement money and invest it in a small petty shop. Boom, everything, they lose it. So we came up with a concept and went to multiple donors with the concept. Multiple donors. Guys, feel free to parallelly fill up this poll as well. We'll sincerely appreciate it. Okay. So this could be a good idea for some of you. Okay. Timothy, could work for you for the Pan Learning Africa. Celeste, it could work for you. For some of you who are doing a targeted activity, I would say build a concept nicely. In fact, there is a click access to the full MCF. You will see how we have structured it. It's very small. There's a much more detailed document, but it's very small, maybe 10 slides, 15 slides, so that we can share it with a corporate and say, hey, will you be able to fund it? Will you be able to consider these are armed people, armed personnel who actually let us go to bed in the evening in peace? Could we help them? And that's the kind of, and that resonates with a lot of people. Can we do this robotics and coding training for potential retirees in the armed forces so that they could have a second career? Imagine a typical policeman or woman retires around 50. They live up to 20, 75, 80. Gone are the days where children are expected to take care of their parents. I'm sure mine is not. So I would say maybe they would love an extra skill which can get them a job. They could be a barista in a local coffee shop. They could be a warehouse supervisor because they're very, very disciplined, You can count on them. You can't. They can do profiling of new recruits in a large company. So there's a lot of things they can do. So we came up with the idea, and then we started going to multiple donors rather than going to multiple donors and each one asking what they want. So this is only possible when you have a single concept and you want to focus on that. So this is one way to do it. Joshua, can you go to the next slide? I think this is the last slide, right? Okay. So the MCF, by the way, some of you, I think Vipul was the one who asked about agriculture. We have a master concept framework on introducing low carbon agriculture across the value chain, from seeding to soil preparation to pesticide to irrigation. Everywhere we can cut down carbon impact. Everywhere we can cut down resource impact, post-harvest, transportation, the whole value chain. And we are going to the larger agri companies and saying, hey, would you like to fund one component of it? Would you like to fund the whole component? Would you like us to do a pilot? So rather than running between projects, we are doing these master concept frameworks, and this really works for a lot of people. Okay, by sticking to this idea, it can also allow you for expansion. Coding for young women, robotics for young women, robotics for people with disabilities, robotics for indigenous people, robotics for some tribal communities. Okay, so you could be expanding, scaling. Okay, a same concept but with different constituents. Okay, with different layers. You could do a robotics 101. You could do a robotics 201. You could do a robotics for out of school youth. You could be doing robotics for in school youth. Slightly different, of course, right? So these are some of the strategies we have used. By doing a MCF, it's also easy for us to, what we call, take an MCF, take a part of it, adopt it, and then adapt it to a particular donor also. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. In the past, we used to do different things for different donors, which we are still happy and we're still doing it. But the next iteration, like I told you, first iteration was only grants. Then it was hybrid grants with private sector. Then the next is pure private sector. And now in the future, it's also this one. So I think this is the last slide. We've come to the grand old section of Q&A. I'm 3 minutes over, plus I've missed out the Q&A. Okay. I fully expected this, but I still wanted to have a Q&A. Shameen, would we have 5 minutes for listing down some questions, quick questions from the participants?
Yes, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, and let me
Get the
see.
questions in the chat, please.
Yeah, if you put up anything in the chat, any comments, it doesn't have to be questions also. If you'd like to see anything from Pollinate Impact, additionally, please feel free to share that as well. Ariel and Shami will look at it. And if we can help with that, we will do it. Or else they will find somebody who can do it for you. Shami, will you help us also? Is there a feedback on this training itself, Shami, that we are doing?
Mm-hmm. It is. There is.
Yeah. So is that like,
so,
okay,
so yeah,
it
so
is
the
good, it's bad, that kind of thing? Yeah. So
we will be sharing the recording as well as the slides. I think, Srini, we will be sharing, and the tool that you were referring to. So we will put all that together, package it, and send it out in a few days.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are any
Joshua,
questions, I'm happy to collect them and share it with you, Srini, and
Yeah, please. And Joshua, please also share a link of Airtable with Shami, that Lucia that I mentioned. HubSpot, okay. Check with BD, particularly ACL, if they are using any other tool in the BD part, okay. And share it with our colleagues. We have a LinkedIn professional account, which we use as an organization. So if if Pollinate gets an account, maybe some of your users can, I won't say access it, they could make a request for a fee or something rather, because it's quite expensive for everybody to do it actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Srini. Thank you, Joshua. This was clearly, it was a very popular, very rich session. We need more than one. So we will be coming
Yeah.
back to you, Srini,
Mhm.
for a follow-up. And
Certainly. Yeah,
yes.
I'm glad that we had a lot of participants today. Yeah, Celeste, appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you indeed. But maybe we can take up a component of it, Shami, next time, instead of the whole thing, because I think people already understand CSR to a certain extent. I just needed to do some context setting, and quite a
Absolutely.
few of participants are new for me, at least.
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, when we take up the next session, we can share this recording. So, there is a level
sure,
setting.
there's a level that would be an
Continue.
excellent idea.
Absolutely.
Ariel, Ariel, you can also start your sort of comments while our friends are having any questions or something like that.
I think,
Thank you.
oh, there she's, Ariel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm here. No, yeah, thank you. And I think to everyone who's here, I think let us know what would be helpful, so that obviously I think Shuni is a wealth of knowledge and has a lot more that could be shared. So let us know what would be most helpful to you as we plan sort of our next level conversation on this. And yeah, we'd love to hear that, so that we're planning based on a, what would be most helpful for you. So huge thanks, Srini. And for those of you who haven't yet applied for membership for Pollinate Impact, our members do get these curated lists of funding opportunities every week that the Assist team helps us craft specifically for our members. And we've also recently launched our office hours in collaboration with Srini and Joshua. So this is where they're actually reviewing your proposals before they go out the door to get that extra set of eyes. So if that's something that you're interested in or that you would like assistance with, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to consider you all as members of the network, so that you can avail some of those benefits that really are intended to help support your own funding and fundraising strategies. So just make a plug there. Otherwise, yes, huge thanks, Srini. And Srini, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry. I think if that's the case, I think it's time for my beer. Yeah, it's overdue for about 2 hours already. But I'm just kidding. Thank you very much, everybody. I think you guys have been great participants as well. Thanks for the great questions. Okay. You know whom to reach. Shami and Ariel are always there to help you guys. And that, of course, at the back end, we are there to provide you support. We will go through your feedback and necessarily make sure that some of your questions are addressed and things like that. Yeah. Yes, CSR does also support policy work, if that's what you're talking about, supporting sustainable legislation. It's policy work. Usually CSR doesn't touch it, but family foundations touch it. And some CSR foundations touch it actually, but otherwise they are more about implementing something specific for a target group. As part of something that you want to do on agriculture, you want to do a small forum to gather government stakeholders, industry stakeholders, and talk about some of the things that you would like to see enacted in the local laws. That is something that the CSR would fund. But family foundations actually heavily fund policy related work. Yeah, policy related work. Yeah.